Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those in the Central and the West Coast time zones. Those following us from Israel, from Europe, and parts abroad, our guest speaker, one of the most powerful and one of the most, I should say, popular of all guest speakers that we have on the briefings, Jonathan Schanzer, right now is in Jerusalem. We're live with him. He's in Jerusalem. If there is a new barrage of rockets from Iran, we'll have Jonathan will have to get into the mamad, into the bomb shelter, and we'll fill people in during that 5-6 minute break. But right now, we do not want to take any time away from Jonathan while there is a quiet in the barrage of Iranian rockets. We want to hand it over to the executive director of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, the man who was involved in the sanctions for over 2 decades, sanctioning the Iranian regime, and someone who is an incredible friend of Friends of the IDF, Jonathan Schanzer.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be with everybody and coming to you live from Jerusalem. It has been an eventful several days here. I'll just give you a little bit of a personal flavor of what I've been going through. Just before the attack started, I had a meeting actually at the Kiryat. I had a chance to meet with a senior Israeli official. And as I was going to those meetings, I started looking at my phone and I started seeing reports of American troops that were being recalled from the region. American diplomats were being recalled from the region. And I was asking friends about it, and people seemed genuinely curious about what was going on. No one really had any clear answers, at least that I talked to. The comforting thing for me was that I was going to the Kiryat meeting with a senior defense official, and my thinking was, there's no way that he's going to have time for me before a major attack on Iran. Apparently I was wrong, and I think they were doing a very good job of making things look like business as usual. I did hear, though, at the time that this official told me that something had been picked up by the Israeli and the American security establishments, both, that had changed their opinion of Iran and its intentions, and that regional tensions were running very high. The term that this person used in Hebrew was nafal ha'asimon, meaning that the coin dropped. It's a term that means that something dawned on you at that exact moment. And it appears now in retrospect that they were now aware of possible or perhaps even likely or even ongoing efforts by the Iranian regime to make a dash for a nuclear weapon. That was apparently the thing that precipitated the Israeli preemptive strike. I found out later that evening at around 3 in the morning that the strike had began because sirens started going off around Jerusalem. Initially, I believe that it was a Houthi missile. I've been here for a few of those, and so I went to the stairwell. And I sat in the stairwell for a while, and then I started seeing the reports coming in on my phone, and it became very clear that something very big and very different was going on. And big and different it was. The Israelis began sending F-35 advanced fighter jets into Iran, bombing their military targets, bombing their missiles, bombing their nuclear sites, and taking out senior military officials. With precise drone attacks and precision-guided munitions. They took out nuclear scientists, senior officials in the Iranian nuclear program, a wide array of targets. Now, what happened after that was that the Israelis just went on an absolute blitz. They took out the first initial strike capabilities. It's unclear whether that was done through kinetic means or cyber means or a combination of both, but it was a full-on blitzkrieg. They really neutered the Iranian ability to respond right away. And during that time, they went after more of those officials, more of the infrastructure of the regime, taking out key nodes of the nuclear program and setting it back by quite a bit. Now, you look at where we are now, and it's nearly 3 days into this attack. There is no question that Israel has done remarkable things here. They have set back that nuclear program. They've taken out a lot of the key leaders, and they have complete air dominance. And let me explain what that means. That back in October of last year, the Israelis, as we know, they responded to an Iranian attack, and they took out a large number of the strategic air defenses. This means they were able to take out the systems that would potentially target Israeli aircraft from far away. What they didn't get were all the intermediate air defense systems and short-range systems. They're now all gone. This means that Israel has the full ability to fly anywhere it wants over Iranian airspace, unhindered, undisturbed. That is an amazing achievement in and of itself. And as they have done that, they continue to go after a huge number of military targets, the headquarters of the military. They've gone after the key facilities involved in the nuclear program, research and development. They've taken out 14 different Iranian nuclear scientists. This means they've erased the knowledge of how to build a bomb. They have gone after the Natanz nuclear facility. That is a major achievement for the Israelis, and it looks like they've delivered significant damage. They've damaged a number of other facilities as well. They've gone after gas fields. They've gone after oil facilities. So they're doing economic damage to the regime. And there are reports that the regime is trying to handle the chaos. People are lining up for food. They're lining up for gas. In some cases, there are reports that people are cheering as they watch Israeli jets bomb various assets of the regime. This is I mean, when you look at Israeli history, this is a classic Israeli military strategy, a blitzkrieg type attack. You think about the 1967 war or even the 1956 Sinai campaign. You fight a lightning war on the enemy's soil, not on Israel's soil. And this was exactly the way the IDF wants to fight. We did learn that the Israelis did something that was very similar to what the Ukrainians did in Russia just a few weeks ago, where they had pre-positioned drones in order to strike the Russian Air Force, and they took out hundreds of millions of dollars worth of planes from the Russian Air Force. This is what the Israelis did with drones as well. The Mossad pre-positioned a drone fleet, a secret drone fleet inside Iran. This is a story for the ages, folks. You'll be hearing more and more about this. The other story that I think is fascinating is that Donald Trump, as we probably all know, had warned the Iranians that if they did not come to the table and negotiate in good faith and get a nuclear done within 60 days, there would be severe consequences. And it turns out the Israelis attacked the Iranian regime preemptively on the 61st day. This, I think, indicates that Donald Trump knew in advance. Now, the president has disavowed this attack. He said that the United States had nothing to do with it, that we were not involved in any way. I am not sure I buy that story 100%. To me, it looks like Bibi was probably given a green light. Trump likely said, okay, well, if we don't get a deal in 60 days, you can go ahead and do it. But, let me do this. The guy who is the ultimate deal maker, the deal maker in chief, just give me an opportunity. And I think Bibi took him up on his word, and he was able to attack. Of course, the U.S. has helped Israel in many ways here so far. I know that intelligence has been a big part of this, even if they're not admitting it. I think that's effectively a guarantee because we've seen U.S.-Israel intelligence cooperation on Iran for a very long time. I think that certainly the United States has helped to shoot down some of these ballistic missiles that the Iranians have been firing at Israel, have been sending me to shelter multiple times a night for the last 2 nights. I will say I'm not particularly well rested right now. But so the help has been there. And of course, all the platforms that Israel's been using, they're all American made, the F-35s and much of the munitions that are being used. A lot of the technology and platforms are American made. So I think it's hard for the US to say that they're not part of this at all. I think there is some debate within the Trump administration right now about whether to finish the job. And what I mean by that is there are 2 really outstanding issues, maybe 3. I mean, let's go with the one that's a maybe first, and that's the ballistic missile stores. I don't know how many they have. I know that the first night there were 250 or so missiles, and then last night we dropped down to about 50. I think that's good news. A little bit earlier today, there was a rare salvo in the middle of the afternoon, at least one Houthi rocket and a bunch of others from Iran. So that was an afternoon salvo. That was 10 or 20 of them. We're not getting exact numbers right now, but they're still able to fire off these missiles. I think the Israelis have been taking out the launchers, The launchers are an important thing because you can have a lot of missiles, but if you can't put them up on the launchers and fuel them in order to send them out, well, then you've got just munition that doesn't go anywhere. So I think it remains to be seen how many more the Iranians can fire off. I am concerned that they're getting better at their aim, because we now know that they have hit in and around the Kiryat. That was unfortunately revealed by one of the correspondents from Fox News, and he has been rebuked here in Israel for having revealed the coordinates of where at least one of the rockets fell on the first night. And then, I think there is the question of, are the Iranians now trying to target some of the less protected areas around Jerusalem? We know that Rehovot was hit. We know that Bat Yam was hit, and other places in the north that may not have the same coverage as Jerusalem or Tel Aviv. That may be part of the strategy that we're watching right now, and the Israelis may not have 100% answers for them. So that's one concern. Another concern is the facility in Fordo. This is the one that is embedded deep inside of a mountain. This is something that the Israelis, as I understand it, have not even tried to touch yet, because they know that the munitions that they carry on those F-35s will not do enough damage to Fordo to even make it worth spending that munition. And what is inside Fordo is incredibly valuable to Iran's nuclear trajectory. It needs to be destroyed. It needs to be removed. And the only thing that can probably take it out is a massive ordnance penetrator, otherwise known as a MOP. Those are carried on B-2 bombers, American-made planes. America could do a lot of damage and possibly send the ultimate signal in this war. The last thing that I think that really feels like unfinished business right now is the enriched uranium that the Israelis will not bomb. This is in a facility in Isfahan. If they bomb it, then you could have nuclear fallout. And that, of course, is not something that the Israelis want on their shoulders. They're trying to abide by the rules of the laws of war. I would say that in general, what we've seen, though, is a remarkably low number of casualties in Iran. That's an incredible feat by the Israelis. Most of the people that have been killed have been regime, or they've been military, or they've been intelligence. This is a good thing from Israel's perspective, not just because they want to show everybody that they're a more moral fighting force, which of course they are. And in contrast, the Iranians have killed they've killed probably just as many Israelis, but it looks like they are targeting civilians almost entirely. I think there's something like 7 Israeli soldiers that have been injured. And of course, that's terrible, but the vast majority of deaths have been Israeli civilians. That's something to watch. But the Israelis, I'll tell you the main reason why they're doing this. They are trying to draw the Iranian people out into the streets to bring down the regime that is crumbling before their eyes. The Israelis have called this Operation Rising Lion. That is a reference to the lion that used to appear on the flag of Iran when it was ruled by the Shah. This is the pre-1979 revolution Iran that the Israelis are appealing to. I cannot put an exact number on what the odds are that these people come out into the streets. But apart from Donald Trump stepping in, the other great hope I think that the Israelis have is that these people come out and they finally take back the country that was once an ally with Israel, once an ally with the United States, and in 1979 pivoted in a horrible direction. The last thing that I'll note is, well, maybe 2 things. One is the unbelievable job of the Mossad, of the Israeli Air Force, of Israeli military intelligence, and indeed all of the IDF, including the emergency workers on the ground who've been on the scene dealing with trying to dig people out when they're under rubble, and handling the concerns of a population that is scared in war. The messages that are coming across my phone, letting me know when to go to shelter, letting me know when to go out of shelter, letting me know when to be near shelter. It's unbelievable how much this country cares for its people and how much the soldiers of this country care for the nation that they defend. The concern that I have right now is truly that this could turn into something of a war of attrition. Israel's the size of New Jersey. Iran is the size of quite double the size of the state of Texas. There are a lot of targets that Israel is still hitting, and they're doing so, again, with complete freedom of action. But there is the concern that Iran may just try to tough this out and continue to erode Israel's air defenses, which are, of course, finite and not hermetic. And when attacks happen, as they did last night in Bat Yam, or in other places, Rehovot, etc., Haifa, these are things that have a deep impact. They're scarring on the Israeli psyche. And of course, there's only so many missile defense batteries that Israel has. I do think that there's help on the way. We're hearing that the international community, Western countries in particular, they're not there necessarily to fight on behalf of Israel, but they are apparently coming to shoot down some of these missiles, and that could be a great help. But I do get a sense that, we don't want this to go for 3 weeks, a month. That's not something I want to see, where even if only 50 rockets are shot, but 3 get through every night, and 3 can do that kind of damage, think about what that does to Israel over time, the kind of destruction that could bring. So this is my assessment. I think the Israelis have done a remarkable job. I think they are winning this war. The fear, of course, is this war of attrition, and a lot hinges right now on the Iranian people and on the President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Jonathan, thank you. A number of questions we have for you. So let's talk about their nuclear capabilities. Obviously, in terms of Fordo, you have 2 options. America comes in with a massive ordnance penetrator. America eliminates Fordo. Or the other option is that there's some kind of special forces, whether it's Iranian forces that are pro-Israel, whether it's Israeli commandos that come in and literally go into Fordo itself and dismantle it or eliminate it internally. That's a must, because Iran cannot be allowed to continue enriching in Fordo and holding all of that 60% enriched uranium there.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's exactly right. And I got to say, the big question is really, we know that the Israelis have had boots on the ground. We know that they've been there in 2018 when they took the nuclear archive out of Tehran. We know that they were there when they set up that advanced drone position. There are other operations that the Israelis have carried out inside Iran over the last several months, over the last several years. We know that's the case. The question is, do they have the pre-positioned special forces, and with enough numbers and with the right gear that would be needed for the kind of operation? And I don't even know what that operation looks like. I've never been inside of Fordo, and I've never been inside of that Isfahan facility. I think Isfahan sounds easier, but it's more sensitive because of the enriched uranium. Fordo, I think, is the tough nut to crack here, and I do think that's what the Israelis are probably more worried about, apart from the welfare and safety of the Israeli people and the Israeli soldiers.
What are you hearing about in terms of the destruction of Arak, the plutonium enrichment facility, Bushehr? What are you hearing about in terms of Parshin, where obviously much of the development of these intercontinental ballistic missiles and other very sophisticated weapons the Iranians have worked on?
So I'll say here, I'm not a nuclear specialist, and I have colleagues who follow this much more closely. My understanding is that Bushehr is going to be left alone, that it is actually a civilian facility, and that the Israelis are not interested in bombing a nuclear facility that is used only for civilian means. Then I think you have, like Parchin and others that you mentioned. As I understand it, the Israelis are happy with what they've been hitting, and they don't have the concerns there. The concerns are the 2 that I mentioned, and the 2 only. So there's SPND, which is the nuclear development organization. That's been destroyed. The scientists have been killed, many of them. Some of the leadership of the Iranian nuclear program, they're also killed. The head of the IRGC Air Force, which would be in charge of the missiles that would probably put a nuclear warhead on, that's also taken care of. So, in other words, there's a lot that has been achieved here. I think, if, as I understand it, based on the conversations that I've had with the people that know this space, it's those 2 places, Isfahan, and that's not a hard place to conquer. It's just the sensitivity of enriched uranium. And then the other one is Fordo, which has always been that hardened facility, and the Iranians built it that way, knowing that, just meters and meters of concrete underneath a mountain, that it was designed to be there for exactly this kind of contingency. And I think that's probably the one thing that the Iranians right now are happy about, is that they created this. I don't think they're happy about much else. They really do look like a paper tiger. And, I will say, as all of this has transpired, Steve, I think a few things. One is, people are saying, well, Israel attacked and it was unprovoked. Okay, two things. Number one, if in fact we were looking at a breakout, then of course Israel had the right to strike preemptively. That would be incredibly important to do so. And then the other part of it is that if if people are saying that Israel attacked and that they were being aggressive, what they're really not looking at here is that, Hezbollah was created in 1983. Hamas was created in 1987. A campaign of suicide bombings, both in Lebanon and in the Palestinian territories, in Judea and Samaria and in Gaza, that took place throughout the 1990s. You had Shiite militias that had been engaging in violence against Israel and against Jews around the world. In other words, Iran had been provoking Israel through its proxies, through its ring of fire, so to speak, now for almost as long as I've been alive. And there's only so much that Israel was going to be provoked. After 10/7, they understood that they needed to go on the offensive. My guess is that Bibi had started to think about this plan maybe shortly after 10/7, maybe well before. Whatever happened here, I think 10/7 made it abundantly clear that there was no sitting back any longer and allowing Iran to determine the rules of the game.
You talked before about regime change. You talked before about, will the people go into the streets? We're hearing rumors that there were planes that have left Iran with government officials heading to Russia, taking them and their families. We have no idea. We haven't been able to confirm those rumors. If that's the case, with the elimination of the leadership of the military, with the fleeing of many of the government officials, there's a real possibility of regime change. I mean, what are you hearing pro and con in terms of that issue?
Well, it's interesting. I think first I want to just talk for a second about the debate in the United States, because I think this is really important. The Trump administration and some of its biggest proponents are divided in a fairly acrimonious way about even getting involved in this war or promoting regime change. They are all looking back at the failed experiments of Iraq and Afghanistan. You have a lot of people in this administration that cut their teeth in government or served in the military or worked for the CIA during that particular period of time. And they are saying, we do not want to get sucked in to the thick mud of the Middle East, right? They don't want to be in the quicksand of the Middle East. And they are saying America needs to stay out of this. We should not be in the position of trying to promote regime change. We should know better by now. We should have learned our lesson. These are the things that we're hearing. And that means that they're basically advocating for Israel to fight for itself. So no massive ordnance penetrators, no pushing Iran to the brink and telling them make a deal and end this, or it's the end of the regime. And I do think the U.S. has the ability to do it. The question is will. And so that is one of the questions of regime change that's playing out. And I think it's highly consequential, right? People are very simplistically talking about this as neo-isolationists. These are the people that are against supporting Israel in this war directly, and internationalists, or people that want to engage internationally around the world. And those are the people that they're saying are, the supporters of Israel. Of course, some are just being called neocons, which is just, something that we hear all the time, which is a slur and a lazy way of saying that people think that Israel has strategic value to the United States, which I think we all do. So that's the first part of this. Then the other part is, the people themselves and what can be done. And I do think that there's a lot that the U.S. can do without putting boots on the ground, without endangering one soldier, right? And that is about providing security assistance to the Iranian opposition, providing them with weapons, providing them with money, providing them with communications, providing them with intelligence to let them know where the regime is so they can begin to tackle this problem themselves. The Iranian people truly hate their regime. They they are deeply resentful of the way the regime has wasted resources over the years, and that they have betrayed the Iranian people, who are largely pro-West, and I think are just waiting for the for Europe, for the United States to tell them that it's okay, that in fact it's preferential, that the regime go down. Will we do that or not? I don't know. But in the meantime, Donald Trump continues to push for a deal. He continues to insist that Iran and Israel need to come to the table, that they could be like India and Pakistan, that they could hate each other all they want, but that there needs to be an understanding between the two that they cannot do this again. I don't know whether that is possible. I think the only way the Israelis will come to the table is if there is no nuclear program any longer and that there are no proxies. I know that if I were an Israeli leader, I would demand nothing less.
We saw with the incredible job that Israel did through intelligence, through the IDF, through the IAF, in terms of literally cutting Hezbollah in an 8-week period, not only taking out the majority of its leadership, but probably cutting it down into 20% of what it was. But in the case of Hezbollah, you had a Sunni and Christian population in Lebanon that hated the Shia more than we do, that despised the Shia for destroying their country, and that, so to speak, supported this. Hezbollah, as powerful as they are, Lebanon, as significant as it is not Iran, and it's nowhere near the size of Iran. And that took 2 months to do that. You know, Iran is a huge country, as you said, twice the size of Texas. They've got a fortune of money from petroleum and other resources that they've spent over 30 years, hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars building up infrastructure, building up ballistic infrastructure, nuclear infrastructure, an IRGC that controls the economy. There's no, again, and I'm making an assumption in my question. Please challenge that assumption if it's wrong. There's no way that Israel can have a significant impact limiting Iran in 6 or 7 days. Just with the freedom of operation that the Air Force will have, you're going to need minimally 3-4 weeks when you think of all the infrastructure, all of the assets, military assets, ballistic assets that Iran has, just to make a serious dent in this. You know, so yeah. When you hear people talking, okay, you know, whether it's the Europeans, the UN, even the president saying, okay, let's sit down and we're going to work out something. You have to give, they had 35 years to try to annihilate Israel. You have to give Israel at least a month to try to undo and eliminate some of the infrastructure that's been built to annihilate Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. Let me just make one note about Hezbollah since you brought it up, Steve. One of the most amazing things that I saw so far, and I've seen a lot of amazing things in this war. I mean, just the fact that the Israelis did this, the chutzpah of Bibi Netanyahu to do this, remarkable. And by the way, like 3 or 4 days before his son's wedding was set to take place, you know, the joke in Washington is that if the Iranians don't kill him, then Sarah will. Because of the cancellation of the wedding. Although there are people who believe right now that Bibi never wanted a wedding and that he wasn't going to have it, and this was part of an elaborate ruse that people thought he would, and was one of the things that I thought about when I saw those warnings. I said, oh, there's no way he can launch a war. His son's getting married on Tuesday. Well, I was wrong. You know, analysts get things wrong in the Middle East more than you'd think, or actually more often than not. But the thing that I was marveling at was the morning after the attacks, right? I finally got a couple hours sleep, woke up, turned on channel 12 here in Israel, and I saw this statement from Hezbollah saying they did not want to take part in this war. They literally said, we don't want any of this. Thank you very much. And that is just, can you imagine, right, where we were 6 months ago and where we are now, where they declined to defend their primary patron. This was the biggest fear that Israel had, was having to go to war against Iran and to destroy their nuclear facilities with Hezbollah pounding them with 150,000 missiles. That threat is gone. So to your point, the Israelis now have this opportunity. They largely defeated anyway, the ring of fire around them. There's no proxy in Syria because of the fall of Assad. You got Hezbollah, really decimated and on its back. Hamas almost out of gas. The militias in Iraq not doing much at all, if anything. The only real front you have is the Houthis, and even there, I think there's been 2 or maybe 3 missiles that they've popped off since this thing began. And knock wood, that'll be the case and keep going. But yeah, the Israelis need time in order to take out all these assets across. And they've been going. These Air Force pilots have just been, as the planes come back, they refuel, put a new pilot in, put some new munitions on, and the guys are up in the air again. It is unbelievable the pace that they're working right now. It is feverish. But here's the concern, Steve. It's that if you had, 2 or 3 direct strikes the first night, 2 or 3 direct strikes the next night, and the air defenses are, they're going to dwindle. Nobody knows what the number is. It's one of the most closely guarded secrets in Israel, how many arrows they have. There's, of course, the THAAD system that the United States has in the region. And there's the air defenses that, have been deployed in places like Jordan and Saudi Arabia and elsewhere. CENTCOM is there, and maybe there's more help on the way. But even then, if Israel sustains 3 big hits a night, or 2, or 1, or 5, how much longer can this go on? And look, it may be that Israel says, we're willing to do this. We're willing to sacrifice a half a city block here and a half a city block there for 3 or 4 weeks in order to safeguard Israel for the next century. And that is, by the way, the vision. I had a briefing with some senior Israeli officials a few months ago, and it's funny, when I look back on it now, they were hinting at some things. They showed me maps, and they showed me where the missile defense systems were and where the rocket launchers were. And they said, look, if we can get rid of these things and then get rid of the nuclear program, then we can ensure the safety and security of the state of Israel for the next 100 years. And by the way, also change the trajectory of the Middle East. In other words, alter the arc of history, because they will have vanquished their greatest enemy, this enemy that had been fostering hatred toward Israel with all these proxies around the region. So that's what's at play here. And the question is, what kinds of sacrifices are the Israelis willing to make? And how quickly can the IDF work? It is a race against time in some way. I think you're right to frame it that way. And again, I don't want to take anything away from what the Israelis have accomplished. It is nothing short of astounding, but I do get a sense that there's still a lot of work yet to be done.
Before we ask you for some final thoughts and some insights look, you should know, you're beloved to us at Friends of the IDF. The work that you do at FDD, the work that you've done for the Treasury Department, where obviously it doesn't look like you're going to be making it home to the United States this week, next week, or maybe in 3 weeks. So we're going to be calling on you if that's okay. I just want to share with our participants, and this is very crucial. Right now, we're being asked to do a number of things. The Army has asked us to fund emergency medical equipment. So for instance, what you saw in Bat Yam yesterday, the ones that are going in there trying to save lives out of the rubble, out of the destruction, is what's called the Pikud Oref's Chilutz V'Hatzalah. The guys who wear the orange berets, the orange kumtas, it's known as the Home Front Command. Within the Home Front Command, there is a whole brigade known as Search and Rescue. Many of you know them from the incredible work they did in Turkey and Haiti. Many of you know them from the work they did in Surfside, etc. They right now need huge amounts of equipment. Some of that we funded when the war started with Hamas, October 7th. We're being asked to fund more as we speak. Literally, I just got requests in from the Army an hour ago. So we have a ton of equipment that we need to fund. We're talking in the millions. And the other thing that they've asked us to fund is there's been a call up of thousands upon thousands of reservists and this is the point that Jonathan just made, to the Lebanese border, to the Syrian border, to the Jordanian border, throughout Judea and Samaria. What Iran was hoping is that this would be a 5-front war, a 6-front war. Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Judea, Samaria, Gaza, etc. That hasn't happened yet, and there's no guarantee that it won't happen in 10 minutes from now. Thank God it hasn't happened yet. But in order to ensure that, you've got not thousands, but tens of thousands of young men and young women who are not at work, not with their families, not in university, but right now are on borders and in Judea and Samaria. We're being asked to fund them. The same needs in terms of funding their families, funding, whether it's food funding, whether it's funding the families that they can pay the rent, pay the utilities, have the means just to survive. That was what we're being doing. It's administered by ACA. It's administered by the Human Resources branch of the IDF. But that, again, is a commitment of millions of dollars that we've made. We made this on Friday, and we're asking for your help. FIDF.org. FIDF.org. If someone wants to talk about something specific, you can email me, steve.weil@fidf.org, steve.weil@fidf.org. But the needs, I can't tell you, are incredible for this war. And as all of us have heard, it does not look like this war is going to be 3 or 4 days. We're probably looking at 3 to 4 weeks, maybe more. Jonathan, if you can share with us some last thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Look, the one thing that I'll just say, I haven't gotten around a whole lot here since the war began. I had a good day and a half before all hell broke loose. But the folks that I've been talking to, the friends that I've seen here, the people that have come to talk to, the folks that I'm with, as we've gotten briefings here in the hotel, trying to stay close to our sheltered area, I'm seeing unbelievable resilience. I see people, it's unbelievable what this country's gone through. The trauma, the war over the last 600 plus days that started with October 7th, it's culminating now. And you'd think that the exhaustion would set in. I mean, Lord, I feel it right now, the tension of not having slept and waiting for the next siren to go off. This is not what I'm used to. This country, they keep rolling with it. A poll that I just saw earlier today is that 90% of the country supports the decision to preemptively strike Iran, and they want to fight until the end. They see it as a mission. They see it as their reason for being here. They're not just looking for peace for the sake of peace. They're looking for peace that is lasting and durable, where Israel survives. And not just survives, but thrives. And this is the thing that I just keep hearing everywhere. It is heartening. It's obviously challenging to see some of the images that we've seen on our TV screens and as we're scrolling through our phones. But I am getting a tremendous sense of resilience here, and I can only say that I hope that it continues.
Jonathan, stay safe. Jonathan, thank you. Look, we're not just thanking you for today. We're thanking you because you played a major role in this. You, in the job you had at the Treasury Department, prevented Iran from having the nuclear capabilities that they have sought. They're nefarious. And we all know this is not about Israel. Israel's first, the Sunni Arabs are second, and Christianity and Western civilization is third. And you played a role in human history and in protecting this globe. And we don't just thank you for spending time with us now, but for what you've done for the last 2 decades of your life. God bless you, Jonathan, and thank you.
Thank you, Steve.